And hello and welcome to another episode of Beam Bites. Tonight we're discovering Beam Microschool Academy and going over the details of the Beam Microschool Academy. And we have our guests joining us tonight. We have Miss Carol Heck joining us as Chief Operation Officer. We have Mr. Brian Gelke as the President of Beam Education. And we have Miss Andrea Nelson as CEO and founder of Beam Education. So I'm going to let each person introduce themselves, and then we're going to get started with the presentation. Go right ahead, group.
Good evening and welcome everyone. Thank you for spending time out of your busy Tuesday to learn more about B.E.A.M Microschool. My name is Dr. Andrea Nelson. I have over 30 years of experience in education. I have been a principal. I have done everything in the public schools. I have been a teacher all the way to being a college professor where I teach future principals on how to be future principals. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gelke.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Gelke. I have almost 25 years of educational experience, all the way from being an elementary teacher for more than a decade, being an instructional coach, and then moving on to being a campus administrator. Dr. Nelson and I have worked together on 2 separate campuses together and brought them from low performing to high performing campuses. And we are excited to now be on this BEAM journey and invite you along on this ride with us. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Trotter.
Well, hold on. We have one more person for an introduction. Ms. Heck, can you hear us? And would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Welcome to tonight. I am the Chief of Operations for B.E.A.M Education, and I have been working with this entity for over 6 years, and I'm very proud and honored to be a member of a company that is dedicated to helping children grow and prepare for entry into the 21st century. My background is that I have been consultant to school districts and businesses, and so I look forward to continuing on the journey with you all. Mr. Trotter?
All right. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Andrea Nelson and Brian Gelke to start the presentation. Ms. Heck will be chiming in where appropriate, and I'll be behind the scenes helping to make sure the graphics and everything, music runs smoothly. So take it away, team.
So we're glad that you're here with us tonight, and I'm sure that you are asking, what is BEAM and what does BEAM stand for? So BEAM stands for Building Entrepreneurs Academically and Mindfully. We came together 4.5 years ago because we had a different vision for what education should and could look like for our young scholars. So what we created was a micro school, which means that it is a tiny school with no more than 150 students so that we can meet your family and we can fellowship with each other to create a lasting ecosystem for your children. So what is a micro school and what is BEAM? BEAM is a small school where we have student-centered instruction, where everything that we do is hands-on, and it is personalized to meet the need of your particular student. In the 21st century, it is important that students have many opportunities to be creative, to be problem solvers, and to work on real world problem solving. And that's what we allow at B.E.A.M Microschool. So we want you to be a part, and that is who we are. But most of all, B.E.A.M looks forward to building a supportive environment where your child can explore their interests, build confidence, and grow at their own pace.
So now that we dove into who we are, what is our philosophy? So B.E.A.M Microschool Academy, and we also should point out the fact that that E in B.E.A.M stands for entrepreneurship. So we focus on that entrepreneurial piece, including fostering the individual growth of your student with that personalized education and also collaborative learning. With that, we teach economic concepts, all those entrepreneurial principles that are make students need or fit their needs to become a 21st century learner and a 21st century scholar. We also focus in on societal governance, all in a safe learner-centered ecosystem, so that we are preparing your child and our students to be those 21st century future innovators.
So, we would like to welcome you to B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. And what would be those principles that hold us tight? They are the thread to the work that we do to discover the future of education. Our mission is simple. We want to empower students in such a way that we every day are building their confidence, their creativity, their compassion to be leaders, as well as to be lifelong learners in a personalized, innovative learning ecosystem. And how do we do that? We do that with community and collaboration. Not only will the families, the 50 families who decide to join us this year, they will become a part of our collective ecosystem, meaning that just as we talk about how your child should be educated, you will join into that conversation so that we will give your child, through collaboration, an experience that they will remember for the rest of their life. The next thing we do is innovative learning. We don't specifically stay in books. We use project-based learning, and we use problem solving to give students some very unique perspectives on what the real world looks like, as we are already 25 years into the 21st century. Now, I'm sure you're saying, well, if you collaborate and you build community and you use innovative learning, then who does that? That is our passionate facilitators. And just to let you know, instead of them being called facilitators, we call them teachers because we totally realize that everyone at some point becomes a teacher in every child's life. And finally, through the discussion that you will hear tonight, we provide personalized learning through our PEP, which stands for Personalized Education, Planning, and Portfolio.
So you'll hear this term over and over again, the B.E.A.M ecosystem. And really what we call it is the collective ecosystem. So that includes everything that Dr. Nelson just talked to you about. In addition, it also includes social emotional learning. We truly believe that you have to teach empathy to children for them to become those 21st century scholars. It also fosters resilience as you're teaching that empathy. So that's a huge part of what we do during this B.E.A.M ecosystem. The other piece of that collective ecosystem is community involvement. So we're engaging all of the families on this journey with us. We will not be working with your child in a silo. Everybody works together. That's why we call it the ecosystem. So that means not only will those families with us, but anybody that surrounds your child and becomes one of those facilitators to them is a part of that ecosystem. And you will also see that last piece, which I kind of just touched on with what I just said, that facilitator collaboration, everybody coming together and working for your students and your child's success as they enter into our B.E.A.M ecosystem.
So I am very sure that since we have discussed just a small portion of the frameworks, you want to know more about our unique offerings. So with our offerings, our program doesn't look like the traditional program that you or I have gone through. Instead, it's a different program. So we're going to discuss some of those offerings that take us away from how we went to school to how your child will be educated at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. First of all, we offer a scholar inventory. And this scholar inventory is done purposely not to put your child in a grade level, because we don't do grades. We do a small, we do a small, lower school and upper school, which we'll talk about more. But the scholar inventory allows us to do four things. Number one, it identifies your students' strengths. What are they good at? Are they good at reading? Are they good at math? Are they good at science? Are they good at social studies? So once we identify that strength, that is something that we're going to make sure that we accelerate. The next thing we do is we find your student's challenge, which in traditional programming, that might be called intervention. But we use that intervention to move them to the next level so that we can close that achievement gap while building their confidence as well as their assurance that they can master anything they put their mind to. The next step is that we do a interest inventory to find
Mhm.
out what your student is interested in, and we also do an inventory to find out how does your child learn. Are they kinesthetic? Are they movers? Are they listeners? Are they a combination of all those things? And then through the scholar inventory, we develop that personalized learning plan that I just talked to you about. And it's tailored based on all of those four areas that I talked about, and also the inventory, the interviews that we do with both you as a family and some of the extended family. And the one thing that I want to tell you about those interviews is we're not just looking for the traditional family focus, a model, because we realize that family is who you make. So we want to talk to all those individuals who have a impact on your student's life.
All right, the next piece of our unique offerings are the flexible cluster grouping. Dr. Nelson touched on that when she said that we don't do grade levels. So we have a lower school and an upper school. That lower school age band is from 5 to 7, and the upper school age band is from 8 to 10. So we truly believe in this cluster grouping because it allows us to foster that individual attention, but it also allows us to create those small class sizes. Like we said, there will be no more than 150 students in B.E.A.M Microschool Academy at any one time. The other piece about us that is very unique is our alternate arrival and dismissal schedule. So you have two options. You can come into school at 8 o'clock, or you can come into school at 10 o'clock. If you come into school at 8 o'clock, your day will end at 3. And if you come into school at 10 o'clock, your day will end at 5. So this is just another piece that we're trying to meet the needs of our parents and our students and also offer something different. There's also something that we will get to into a little bit of why this alternate schedule becomes so important. So if you're looking at the rest of our unique offerings, so yes, you might be asking the question, so what happens to your normal core subjects? We still will tackle math, science, language arts, reading, social studies, in rigorous instruction. So there doesn't need to be any worry about that. Everything will still be based on the TEKS, which are the Texas standards. We wanted to do that to ensure that just in case your student or your child decided not to stay with B.E.A.M or they leave us after being in B.E.A.M, that they would be more than prepared to enter into what might be a traditional setting. The other piece of that is we are offering an interdisciplinary program. So what that is that's the project-based learning. So we're integrating all of those entrepreneur pieces, economic literacy, societal governance, some of those interests that your student had or we found on the scholar inventory. They're all put into that project-based learning so that everything is integrated and flows together.
So with the core subjects and the interdisciplinary programming, we also offer language, because in the 21st century, as your child is a global citizen, he needs or she needs to know more than one language. So the two languages that we will be offering at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy are Spanish and American Sign Language. Now, I know that you're going like, American Sign Language? Yes, that is an official language, and it is a way for us to take your child and teach them how to become a person with a skill set that they can hire out. So just think of a student who has possibly been in our program from 5 to 10. By the time they are 11 or 12, they are ready to possibly be interpreters using American Sign Language and get paid for it. Now, with all of these offerings that we talked about, Friday is a very special day at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. It is Lab Day, and Lab Day stands for learning, applying, and building. It is on this particular day, everything that students have been working on in PQ, which we'll talk about soon, in their PQ session, and in their extended project-based learning on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Friday, that is application day. And on application day, your student will be exposed to 21st century topics. These topics include such subject areas as environmental stewardship, because we want the children to have an awareness and be mindful of how they take care of the environment. We want them to understand what it is to be a global citizen. We want them also to understand digital technology, but what comes along with the use of digital and media technology is ethics. So they will also be provided a course in ethics on how to use technology as a tool for positivity. Also, on those days, they will be offered a course in art and design and mass communications.
So what does this look like? So you've heard us throw out a bunch of different terms. So we're going to dive into a little bit deeper about what some of these things mean and how they will flow at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. You heard us talk about the scholar inventory and how it gives us all the essential knowledge we need about your child and our student to create their personalized education plan. And what that personalized education plan is the roadmap that will take them through B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. So it has the scholar's strengths, it has the scholar's weaknesses, it has their scholar's interests, so what they like to do. It also talks about that culture that Dr. Nelson talked about when we were doing those interviews, and family connections. So all of this information we use to create this, what we call PEP plan, which then turns into a portfolio with artifacts to support their plan throughout their time at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. The next piece on here, the PQ'd, which you also heard Dr. Nelson mention too on the last slide, is our prep and propel power session. So this is when I talked about where that alternate schedule comes in play. The PQ session is a 2-hour session. So if your child comes in at 8 o'clock, their PQ session is from 8 to 10. And if your child comes in at 10 o'clock, their PQ session will be from 3 to 5. And the reason we do that with those blocks, those two different blocks, is because even though we're a micro school and we're already tiny, during those 2 hours, we have even less students on campus than we do during the middle part of the day. So that allows us to provide even more individualized attention than they would even get during the day. So during this session, they'll do things like goal setting with their personalized education plan and portfolio. They will also use this time to work on acceleration. So those topics that they're already mastering, we're going to push them even further by accelerating. This will also be when they do some intervention. So any of those places where they have weaknesses, they will work on those weaknesses during intervention time then. And the last part of, yes.
In relationship to the intervention, one thing that I think that we really need to stress with families is the fact that because they're getting these additional 2 hours every day, that totals up to 8 hours of
Hmm.
personalized instruction. Whereas if they're sitting in a traditional model and they had to be pulled for intervention, those students would only possibly receive 3 times a week at 120 hours. So this alone is a value for you, because which would you rather, 120
Minutes.
minutes per week
Yes.
versus 8 hours of time that has been personalized specifically for your scholar?
Right. It's a huge amount of time for us to provide intensive acceleration or intensive intervention, whatever it may need be. The
And
last piece.
that's
Go ahead, Carol.
and that's available because we work with each child individually. I think that's important to know. That's why we set up the PEP plan so that we can work with your child on a one-on-one, and that's not done in schools today.
So the
Thank
last
you.
piece you see on this page is that multi-age project-based learning that we talked about. Um, and why do we do multi-age schooling? Well, these are some of the reasons why we believe it's so important. One, it's that collaborative piece that allows students to work together, which is, we all know they have to do when they get out into the real world as those 21st century scholars. And it also provides social benefits because they're learning to work with people of different ages. Beyond that, it allows us to dive into that personalized learning pace with that flexibility and curriculum that we need in order to individualize the instruction with the PEP plan. The other piece is that it reduces competition between students, but it also increases cooperation between students. So we're teaching them how to work together. With that also comes the encouragement of independence and responsibility on their part for what they're responsible for.
So, we've talked about some of those very unique structures and framework that we have at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. One other framework or structure that we will be using is the lower school groupings and the upper school groupings. The lower school groupings become so dynamic and important because when kids or students are mixed in a heterogeneous aging group, what happens is students start to take upon the learning of what they're seeing with their older peers in their group. So that is why we are using a multi-age grouping structure, and we will have a lower school and an upper school. So I'm going to discuss right now the lower school grouping. So in that grouping, we have three groups. Age 5, which is our innovators, and they're those young ones who are, some of them are coming to school for the first time, and so they have that creativity, they have that joy, they have that happiness of wanting to be around other children like themselves. But also it's time for them to start learning the structure of what it looks like when you're in an organization, as well as looking and learning from others. So this time, the 5-year-old agers are called innovators. And that is because in them, we are wanting to keep their creativity. We want to add to their base of knowledge, their little repertoire of knowledge that they carry around in their brain. We want to add more ideas so that they start making more connections and developing a larger listening and oral vocabulary. So the next group is called our trailblazers, and those are the children that are age 6. And we want to take everything that they have learned as innovators, and now with this new information, we want to create some new paths, some new ways of thinking that they can work at school. And so then they become the ones who help the innovators. But they're also the ones who are watching the explorers, who are that older age group in that group. And those are your 7-year olders. because now they've had what they learned when they were 5. Now they learn what they have learned when they were 6. And so at 7, now it's about new concepts. It's about pushing them so that they're ready to move to the upper school, and the learning gets more complex because in the lower school grouping, we're teaching them how to learn. And so when you're learning how to learn, it becomes important that we help them set up their own repertoire of knowing when they're having problems learning, or when something's difficult, do they give up, or do they have the resilience and grit? So that is what we're truly working on with the lower school groupings, but we're still going to make sure that they are reading above their counterparts in traditional programs. So just because we're teaching literacy and mathematics all in a different way, because of how we're teaching, your child will excel immeasurably at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. So with that, Mr. Gelke is going to talk about the upper school setting.
So that upper school group, like we mentioned before, will be ages 8 to 10. So the lower side of this upper school group are our visionaries. Those are our 8-year-olds. So they're making that transition from lower school to upper school. So we're guiding them so that we can help them envision and shape their future. So, it's a step up. So we've got to continue guiding as they move forward. And that's what we're doing with that 8-year-old group. 9-year-olders are called our catalysts, because now that we've guided them to envision and shape the future, now we want to empower them to spark change and create innovations so that they can be those 21st century scholars and create change in the world. And then the last piece, our oldest in the building, are our mentors, obviously, because we want to highlight the role of them in guiding their peers. So, they will do mentoring all the way down to our lower grades. And they are the seniors in the building, so they are the ones that everybody looks up to. So there's some high expectations for them and what they must present out there for the rest of our students in the building when they're there.
So let's jump into an excerpt of a unit, a project-based unit that both the lower school and the upper school students will do. Now, it's very important that as you look at this lesson, I want you to pay attention to how the lesson changes, how the unit changes as it moves from being a lower school unit to moving to being an upper school unit. So let's jump into it. The name of this particular unit is called Eco Innovators, Student Entrepreneurs for a Sustainable Future. The goal of this particular unit is that students will explore the concept of sustainability and develop entrepreneurial skills as they look at environmental issues, as they brainstorm solutions, and then possibly create friendly products or scenarios that will help to change the trajectory of the environmental issues that they have researched. This project is specifically designed so that it encourages students to critically think, to collaborate with peers, and to have a real world experience using their academic skills. So let's move to the next one. Let's look and see what would happen with lower school multi-age groups. So as you can see specifically on this page, we have provided you with the core subjects that will be integrated, as well as we have provided you with the TEAC alignment that your student would be involved in with this specific lesson. As you can see, all of the core content lessons are there, as well as technology application. The other thing is the alignment to the TEACs, because when you look at the TEACs build on one another. So even though your student may be a 5-year older, that same TEAC is built on when they are 7. So they get to see from that standpoint Children have the opportunity to help with their gaps if they're working on a specific skill at a lower level when they're doing project-based and multi-age groupings. And so therefore, students have the opportunity to see each other work through identified problems. So jumping into what would happen in the lower school with our 5 through 7s. Of course, we wouldn't be talking about environmental stewardship. We would be talking about sustainability or entrepreneurship just yet. Because one thing that we want to do and center around this work is increasing the listening and oral vocabulary of students. So with that first week, we're going to do introduction and we're going to do exploration. We might be outside looking to see what are the difference between being on the inside, what's inside environment like, and what's outside environment like. We're going to do that through telling stories, a class discussion. They might have an observation sheet that they take home. So as they're working, they will identify what is truly the difference between the natural and man-made environment. So that discussion will go on. And then we would take all of that information. And so then we would start telling them about how do we have problems? What are some of the problems that you all have in your man-made environment in the house? And what are some of the environmental issues that you have outside of the house? And so this would be done through nature walks, through observation activities, through spotting problems, through using video and other visual materials for students to really start thinking about environmental issues and how they impact their way of life. So then by week 2, because we have focused on that exploration and because we're now looking at environmental issues, now it's time for the 5 through 7-year-olds to come up with a solution to what they have discovered. Because at the top, which I did not talk about, is taking a list of all of the environmental issues that we find and then ranking them, letting the kids vote on figuring out which one is the top one. And then basically as a group, we would come up, after we ranked them, we would come up with a solution for solving. So one thing that first week is truly working on introduction of environmental care so that students can start thinking about why do we do the things that we do to keep the environment safe, and what are some of the negative things that we do when we harm the environment. So through that, we're going to do lessons on recycling. What does conservation look like? They would be creating posters. They would probably be out using their little cameras to take pictures and then to write a newsletter on what they found out about environmental care. And so then finally, the last week, and I just jumped to number 4, which is the brainstorming idea of what kids would create after these first weeks of learning about their environment. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, and he's going to discuss upper school multi-age groups.
So moving back to the upper school, just a reminder that is our 8 to 10-year-olds. You will also see this looks very familiar to that first page for the lower school, because just once again, just that reminder that we are integrating all the core subjects, science, social studies, English, language arts, reading, math, and technology applications. In addition to, you see those that TEAC alignment once again, just in making sure that you know that we're tackling what needs to be tackled according to the state of Texas, since that's where we're located. And like Dr. Nelson said before, just remember that those TEACs are a scaffold. It's like think of it like a ladder, and it builds from year to year or age to age. So that's why we were able to group these together and provide a trajectory for your student in this upper school age group. So looking at that lesson plan, so you'll see some similarities between the lower group, but you'll also see how it's different. Once again, we're showing you just week 1 and week 2 of a 6-week plan. So week 1, we would be laying that foundation. So we would be doing some introduction to sustainability and entrepreneurship for our upper grade students, our upper age students, I should say. So what that might look like are some different workshops on sustainability and entrepreneurship so that they dive in to understanding the true meaning of what those two things are. That might also include some guest speaker sessions. So we'd bring some people in, or I'll possibly take them to go see some people on that lab day on Friday as well. That would be our first couple of days. On day 3 to 5, we would start doing some community mapping and problem identification. So what we mean by community mapping is literally going out into the community itself. So we might go on what we would call a data walk and a data dive to see some problems that they notice within the neighborhood itself that we are located in. So that would be that local environmental audit and that data collection, and also doing some team building and discussions with the entire group that they're working with. So after week 1, week 2, now that we've done some of that local environmental deep dive and data collection, we're going to start doing some research on the problems that we saw. So we'll take a deep research dive. So we'll start investigating maybe some environmental problems that we saw as issues as we did that community mapping walk, and start consulting with some experts. So that would be reaching out, doing some video conferencing with experts based on the problems that we saw. After that, day 4 to 5, which mirrors what you saw in that first group, that creative brainstorming. So an ideation session, a feasibility analysis of is what we need to do possible cost-wise, and come up with a solution. And you have to think about this like a science problem, and we're going through the scientific method. We come to a solution, and if it works, then it's great. If it's not, then we might have to revisit something. So that's that deeper dive that the upper school age group would take. The other thing we wanted to reiterate with the upper school and the lower school, I think we need to touch on this, is that yes, if your child is working, let's say you have a 6-year-older and your 6-year-older can handle 8-year-old math or 9-year-old math, will they be able to work on that age group math? Absolutely. That's part of that acceleration. But the flip side is we will not throw them into the upper age group. They will stay with their lower school group. Why? For socialization purposes. There's no need to throw them into that upper group when they need to be with that lower group for socialization. I think that's just an important topic to touch on, because I know that is a question that a lot of people have. So there doesn't need to be any worry about them, a 5-year-older working with a 10-year-older being in the group with a 10-year-older. So what are your steps for enrollment? Well, right now, what you're in right now is considered a welcome event. So you've already tackled step 1. Beyond that, after this welcome event, you think, okay, this is something that I really would like to dive into for my child. What we would ask you to do is you're going to schedule a personalized interview with us. That's the second step. So you would contact us and we would set up an interview that we talked about at the beginning of this, so we can dive in to get to know you and your family dynamic. After that interview, if we're still on track to continue the enrollment process with B.E.A.M Microschool Academy, you would then enter into what we call our scholar inventory, which we talked about earlier. With that scholar inventory, there is a testing piece. So at that point, there would be a deposit made of $1,100 because we would have to test your student. But also remember that $1,100 would be taken out of your tuition. When we get to talk about that, you'll see. But just know that it's coming out of that. It's not in addition to. The 4th step of the enrollment process after that, so we've done the scholar inventory, we know everything that we need to know about your student and your child, then we can create that personalized portfolio for them, just for them. Nobody's going to provide you with a more tailored portfolio than what we're creating with our PEP plan. But that is, like we said, the guideline, and becomes their portfolio that follows them throughout their B.E.A.M Microschool Academy career. And then lastly, after that, we've created that portfolio. Well, it's time for you to join us at school. So with that, we do some orientation and integration. And that orientation and integration is not only for the student, it's also for the family. Because remember, we're talking about that collective ecosystem and everybody that surrounds the student as they enter into B.E.A.M Microschool Academy.
So I'm sure that you are, so Mr. Gelke, Miss Hecht, Mr. Trotter, we're all going to talk about this. But what I want you to think about is some of the offerings that we just talked about. We have a flexible schedule where your child can pick as a family what time is best for your student to come in from 8 to 10. We do a scholar inventory to find out specifically where your student is. From there, we do a personalized education plan that supports your student on where they're learning. And so then I want you to think about the fact that during when I was doing the presentation and I talked specifically about the PQ, what came out was the fact that through this programming, your student receives 8 hours of personalized instruction that covers their intervention, that covers their acceleration, that covers coaching and conferencing to build up their confidence and to create this super scholar that's ready to face the world. So, and then on top of it, we didn't talk about the fact that we're a 12-month school and we're open from 7 to 7. And the fact that once a traditional school year ends in June, we become a summer camp from July until late June until late July when we get ready for school to start. So what we're going to offer you, what we're asking for the price is very, very. What would you say it was, Gelke or Mr. Trotter? That is, it has a great value, doesn't it?
Exactly. I think that's what you're trying to say right there, is that
Right.
the value that we offer is really amazing when you think about that. You don't have to pay for all those extra services that you're already paying for, such as before and after school care, or like you said, those summer camps that you're putting your child in during the summer. All those would be extra costs. With us, everything is included. So when you look at that $20,000 tuition, all of that is included in there. And like we said, if you look at this breakdown, I think really the most important one is this last box here. When you look at, basically that's $833 per month. And that price right there is really more than most people pay for before or after school every month. So that alone, on top of the fact that we're also providing you with summer services as well, is that what we're giving you for the $28,000 is an amazing value.
I like to say it's a 12 by 12. 12 hours in the day we're open, 12 months out of the year, focusing on educating your child.
The interesting thing is that we will give you discounts for multiple children, so that if you have one child, the cost would be $10,000 per child. But if you have 2 children, we will give you a discount for the second child. If you have 3 children, we give you more of a discount. So we're going to work with you so that we can meet the needs of your entire family as far as your children is concerned, and taking care of them and growing them together as a unit.
So, if you have truly enjoyed what you heard today and you want to become a part of the B.E.A.M movement, there are several ways for you to be able to do that. One way is to go to our website, which is at www.beammicroschool.org, or you can go through our contact us at info@beameducation.org. So with that, I'm going to let my colleagues and my peers close us out. And I want to thank you for the opportunity of being able to share with you our vision for B.E.A.M Microschool, because we are the school that has the 21st century learning for the 21st century scholar. So with that, I turn it over to my peers.
We just want to thank you for joining us again tonight. We are excited about what we have created here. You know, between myself and Dr. Nelson having more than 50 years of experience in the traditional school setting, we believe that, you know, we have created something that is going to help propel students to really be those 21st century scholars. And we really want you to join us on this movement. And we're excited about where we're headed. So please contact us if you really would like to join us on this journey as well.
I want to thank you very, very much for being a part of our presentation tonight, for understanding that what's important is your child and your family unit, all of you coming together in order to move forward into the 21st century. And that's what's critical to help your child move at his or her pace and be ready to meet whatever challenges await them as they enter the 21st century. Thank you so much. We look forward to meeting with you and helping you to grow as we grow.
Thank you once again for joining us. Please look to book us live. We'd love to come out and sit down in front of you at your local coffee shop, community center, and talk to you face to face to answer any questions that you might have. Until next week, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to talking.